All right, this is our case study on Facebook Inc. The people involved is Victoria Lopez, Frank Segura, Kapil Sharma.
Hi, this is Victoria. We're going to start by giving you a little background on the case. This case tasked our team with analyzing selections from Facebook's 2017 public filings from the perspective of an analyst with an investment research firm. Our goal was to provide a report to our company about corporate governance issues within Facebook so that we could make recommendations to our clients about the prospects of investing in the company. Next slide, please. A summary of our analysis is that we found 4 main areas of concern as regards Facebook's corporate governance and structures, and we're going to address them in brief through this presentation. The main areas of concern that we found were shareholder structure, which had 2 components, one of dual class stocks and one of being a controlled company, current board structure, composition of the board of directors, and executive compensation. Next slide, please. For the shareholder structure, the first issue that we wanted to look at was dual class shares. Basically, Facebook currently has 2 classes of shares. Class A shares are sold to the public and have voting rights of 1 vote per share. Class B shares have voting rights of 10 votes per shares. This is not a common practice to have dual class shares, particularly in the tech industry, but it is something that potential investors may worry about because often they feel that it offers too much insulation between management and outside shareholders. This structure allows majority shareholders to maintain control of the business without majority equity, which means, which many argue allows management to focus on long-term goals rather than short-term goals. Next slide. However, the reverse of that argument is that it can sometimes lead outside shareholders disproportionately feeling the effects of poor business decisions. Diminished voting rights also mean that outside shareholders cannot effectively act as a check on management or the majority shareholder. Index shareholders also have a hard time simply selling their shares, and so that raises concerns for them. And additionally, majority shareholders can resist raising capital through the sale of stocks because it will dilute their ownership stake in the business. And that's of concern for minority shareholders. Next slide, please. So the next area that we looked at was also in shareholder structure, and it was about the controlled company aspect of Facebook. A controlled company is one in which a single shareholder owns a majority of voting shares. Facebook currently, the majority shares are owned by Mark Zuckerberg. He has 59.9% of the voting shares of Facebook, which, to give you a little context, all of the executives in Facebook combined, including his 59.9% share, total 60.4%. So he truly has the supermajority. Combined with his positions as CEO and chairman of the board of directors, this gives Mr. Zuckerberg a virtually unchecked power in the operation of Facebook. Agency concerns for companies that are controlled are not the typical shareholder management concerns, but instead they exist more as potential conflicts of interest with minority shareholders. Next slide. So continuing on that subject, there's no real reliable empirical evidence suggesting that controlled companies perform better or worse than non-controlled companies. In fact, there have been studies that indicate both are true, but accountability concerns are still significant for many investors. So investors must then be aware that Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, as the face and embodiment of the company, are linked. His performance as CEO is the success or failure of Facebook. Given his controlling interest in the company, an investment in Facebook should be analyzed almost as an investment in the man himself. So currently, given a number of recent scandals, Facebook has still shown resilience in the marketplace. Next slide, please. So the next area that we looked at was the current board structure, which is non-classified. Facebook currently has a non-classified board of directors, which means that all of its directors are elected to and serve for one-year terms. This is as opposed to a classified structure where there are classes which serve multi-year terms and not all directors are up for election at once. This structure is favored by shareholders because it allows for greater accountability to them. But in this case, it's even though it is a preferred structure, it's a little bit rendered moot because Mr. Zuckerberg still owns the majority of voting shares. And so even though the shareholders may feel like they have more accountability, he basically has the first and last word on everything that happens with the company. Next slide, please. So a brief analysis of just these areas, shareholder and board structure. While Facebook has performed well, increasing assets and revenues steadily, as well as growing its user base year over year, accountability concerns exist which cannot be ignored. By owning the vast majority of Class B shares and serving as both CEO and chairman of the board, Mark Zuckerberg has made himself the only vote of consequence when it comes to Facebook. Short-term or risk-averse investors would be wise not to invest in Facebook due to lack of checks and balances and accountability to shareholders. However, for experienced long-term or tech investors, these issues are similar to those faced by a number of startups and major tech companies. And so we could recommend the purchase of Facebook shares to those particular investors, as long as they recognize that it would be a long-term investment. So the next section is going to be covered by Frank.
This section, I'm going to talk about the composition of the board of directors for Facebook. I have here basically a snapshot of who is involved on the board of directors. We see here Mark Zuckerberg is the chairman and CEO. And then you have the Sheryl K. Sandberg, but she is also actually is an employee of Facebook. And then you have the remaining board of directors here that are independent individuals who are part of Facebook's board of directors. As I mentioned, Zuckerberg is the CEO and chairman of the board. Mark Zuckerberg is currently in these two roles, which is kind of frowned upon with many analysts. They like to keep the two roles separated. Board role is monitored. It is monitors operations as CEO. Mark Zuckerberg is monitoring himself. So, board of directors usually go and monitor operations. And as a CEO, Mark Zuckerberg is managing operations. So, and essentially, he's being monitoring himself. This can also lead, some may believe that it can lead to abusive position because Mark Zuckerberg is in such too high positions, it could cause potential problems. Also, may not be able to identify or monitor areas of the company that are drifting from its mandate as well as independent chair. Sometimes these people who are in this high position who are so deeply involved into the company will go and miss some things because of their drive. Why independent chairman is more beneficial clearly separates between the roles of a board and management. This kind of goes back to my slide that I had said before, which you kind of have monitoring and you have managing. Gives one director clear authority to speak on behalf of the board. In many cases, some meetings must not have individuals who are involved with the company. Must be all independent individuals with the board. So if you have an independent director, it avoids all that. You always have that one director that is involved with every meeting. Also, it takes the roles of the chairman out of the CEO if you just have the independent chairman as the head of the board. So it allows the CEO to focus just on operations. It also encourages others to share their viewpoints and raise questions that challenge the CEO. Sometimes the CEO being inside of the board can be a little intimidating for other members, and they might think to speak against the CEO and challenge him. The 7 independent individuals on the board are Mark L. Anderson, Erickson, Susan Desmond, Reed Hastings. If you look here, it also kind of gives you a description of what their professional background is before they went and they entered into Facebook. 3 other individuals here that are independent is Jan, Peter, and Kenneth. Again, you could kind of see over here their professional background. One note to make is that Jan Koum has served and continues to serve as co-founder and chief executive of WhatsApp Inc. Some of you may know that WhatsApp is actually a subsidiary that's owned by Facebook. So you could kind of see that actually Jan is a little bit invested into Facebook. A little bit different situation than it is by the other independent individuals on the board. Lead independent director. You saw this name pop up in the other slide, Susan D. Desmond. She is the second most important person on the board because she's not an employee of Facebook. She's an independent. So any compensation meetings, stuff like that, scheduling meetings that cannot have individuals who are employed by Facebook in them is led by Susan Desmond. So she is the second most important person on the board. She presides over portions of the regular scheduled meetings, serves as a liaison between chairman and independent directors. That's important to know that the board of directors, in some cases, the CEO is not the chairman. So you also have, in some different cases, the chairman has to coordinate between the CEO and performs duties that other board directors may determine. Suggestions on the compensation of the board. We suggest that Mark Zuckerberg gives up his position on the board. Like I said, it is a lot more benefits of him not being on the board than being on it. However, the current configuration is typically for a rapid growing company, includes having the founder as the chairman. So the situation of Facebook is very common in other rapid growing companies. But the other thing I want to mention is that it is positive that the current board is comprised of independent majority. So yes, Mark Zuckerberg and Sarah are the 2 employees of Facebook, but the majority, over 7 individuals, are non-employees.
Okay, hi, this is Kapil. I will cover compensation discussion and analysis. Facebook's executive compensation is based on its exclusive philosophy with an objective and specially designed policy. Facebook still considers itself a growing company, and its mission is to ensure the company executives have the right power to make difference in building community and bring people together in the world. Because of this belief, Facebook hires and retains people who can take the company's thoughts and strategies to the next level and help its business grow exponentially. In order to accomplish success, Facebook is keen in hiring engineering, product developers, sales, and other teams, and expect them to hold and showcase strong leadership and management qualities. Goal of the company is to attract the top talent in layers of management teams and motivate them to deliver the highest level of individuals and results. The objective further encourage the executives to promote the company's culture of increasing growth at fast pace, openly communicating, focusing on influence and building common values in the world. Company ensures that the executives are well compensated, and their services to encourage long-term retention aligns their interests with the stakeholders for overall success of the company by long-term incentives. Facebook believes that equity compensation is the best medium to focus on its executives, on its mission, and the accomplishment of the lasting tactical and financial objective to align their significance with the long-term importance of stakeholders. Next slide, please. Compensation governance. Compensation governance in this section, we focus mainly on committee is comprised solely of independent directors. Company does not offer post-employment payments or benefits. Compensation and governance committee retain discretion on bonus payouts, offer limited prerequisites that are business-related purpose or necessary for the security of CEO, COO, and executive participants. Next slide, please. Compensation setting process. These are the main components of this process. Role of compensation and governance committee is to ensure fair executive compensation exercise are practiced. The committee includes independent directors and consultants which conduct an annual review and approval of Facebook's compensation strategy. Role of compensation and governance committee. This committee is responsible for overseeing all aspects of Facebook's executive compensation program, including executive salaries and bonuses. Role of management team and the compensation and governance committee evaluate and mitigate any risks that may exist to the compensation plan. Role of compensation consultant. This group has an authority to advise and assist compensation and governance committee and provide comparison of Facebook's policies to other companies. Facebook also uses comparative market data to ensure that the compensation it gives to its executives is well compared with the market to hire and retain executive talent. Next slide, please. This is the compensation chart of directors and executives from 2017. We can see some of the directors like Mark and others. We have listed out like above 5 where they've earned a fees which was paid in cash, in stock awards, all other compensations, and we have the total of their total earning. In the next table, we present the executive compensation of senior executives like Mark Zuckerberg, who's CEO, COO, CFO, CPO, and CTOs, and their salary, bonus, stock award, other compensation. The only person who doesn't get salary, bonus, and stock award is Mark Zuckerberg. So after this, given with all this analysis, we come to a conclusion. Facebook compensation and governance committee take all necessary measures to ensure directors and executives are well compensated. This committee also approved inclusion of other big companies like Amazon, Apple, Cisco, and Microsoft in their peer group as they belong to the same industry. Highest top talent, their revenue is more than $10 billion. This allows Facebook to successfully recruit and retain best possible talent for their executive teams. That's all we have for this case analysis. Thank you, everyone.